Well, hello, and welcome once again to another edition of Pray on This. I'm your host, John Pray. Hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, share the video, and if you're not getting everything on YouTube, go over to Rumble, because I'm there as well. So I know it's been 18 days since my last post, and there are reasons for that. Life got in the way. I have been progressing in my medical journey with my bad hip, and finally got to see an orthopedic surgeon who informed me that yes, I do need a new hip, but he won't do the surgery as long as I was still smoking cigarettes. And when it comes down to living a life of pain or continuing to smoke, I chose that what I thought would be the best course of action for my health, which I knew I needed to quit smoking anyways, but this just gave me the final incentive to do it. I was not a very happy or nice person for 8 to 10 days as nicotine came out of my system and I've started learning new habits. And no, I haven't been perfect. I have had a few cheats along the way, but in the last 18 days, I've smoked 5 cigarettes, which is a lot better than the 20 a day I used to smoke. So doing a video when you're snarly and nasty and ready to rip a person's face off probably wasn't the best idea. I've avoided social media during that time because certain things can make my blood boil, and in the mood I was in then, probably wouldn't have been a good thing. There's also been other complications within the family. My aging mother and stepfather were both diagnosed with COVID. Now, luckily, they were diagnosed quickly. They got the antiviral meds. They recovered quickly. But my mom is 74 years old on Monday, and she has severe breathing issues. And it was quite worrying for a while. It also caused other complications, which my mom is usually the childcare for my daughter's children, my grandchildren, Sebastian and Theodore. Um, and so, therefore, with mom down, uh, Poppy stepped in and we babysat the children the 14th, 15th, and 16th of June, which I don't consider myself old at 53, but chasing a 2-year-old around for the day, well, I found out that I'm not young anymore either. I was quite exhausted. Uh, there was also the opening of the Toronto Argonauts season at BMO Field, and for those of you who have been loyal viewers, you know that I am a huge football fan, CFL football fan, and a fan of the Toronto Argonauts. I was there on opening day. I watched our championship banner get raised. I got my replica Grey Cup ring. Wish it would fit me. It fits on my pinky to about here. But I've got it. I've got it on display, along with one of the game worn jerseys I have in a shadow box. I'm quite happy about that. But I digress. There's also been work, some travel. Life just got in the way, and I just didn't have time to do this. So, what has been happening since the last time I posted? Well, we all know June is Pride Month. Don't ask me how it became a Pride Month when I was a young man in my 20s. Pride was one day, which was Father's Day. And I don't understand why Father's Day was chosen as Pride Day, but so it was. And then about the beginning of my 30s, it turned into a week. And then right about the time I was 40, it turned into a month. And over time, it has evolved into an orgy of advertising of all major companies trying to virtue signal how virtuous they are and that they support the ever-growing acronym of people. Um, and it's a chance for activists to say that they're all one big happy family and that everybody agrees with everybody. And it's become quite a contentious issue. Since I last posted, there has been some pretty major protests, backlashes, so shall we call them. Groups of Muslim and Christian parents together protesting at schools and school boards about how they don't want pride in the schools. They don't want the indoctrination of their children. And their chant has been a very simple leave the kids alone. Leave the kids alone. There has been some counter protests to this. And there has been some violence. Now, I do find it rather interesting that the only people arrested were the counter protests, the people who are in favor of gender identity being pushed down the throats of young, impressionable children. We also had Blaine Higgs coming out with an update to their school policy that caused a bit of a controversy because our prime minister waded into it. I don't see where it's very controversial, but simply was this, is that if your child who's under the age of 16 wants to identify as a girl, but they are a boy, and they want to change their name at school, if that child is under 16 years of age, the schools must inform the parent. It also goes the other way. If you have a daughter who wants to identify as a boy and be called by a boy's name, they have to inform the parents. The prime minister came out and was totally against this. Once again, overstepping his bounds and his jurisdictions. People say that, oh, he's doing it because he's so caring. I don't think so. I think that the prime minister did it because it's a wedge issue that he can try and exploit. I don't know how successful he will be exploiting that as a wedge issue. I don't think it'll really work for him. And honestly, the 2S LGBTQAI plus community and their activists, the majority of them, all of the activists and a lot of that community, they already vote liberal anyways. There are people within the community who are conservative, and they've spoken out as well that pride should stop. It's not what it was originally intended for, that in the beginning it was about human rights. It was about being able to walk down the street holding the hand of your significant other and not be ridiculed. It was about the recognition of those relationships. And I have this within my own family. My youngest daughter is a lesbian, and she's in a same-sex relationship, and it's as loving and caring as my marriage, and it's as loving and caring as her sister's marriage. And I would suggest that in time, their relationship is also going to become a marriage. That's what pride was fought about in the beginning. Now, a lot of people, my daughter's friends for that matter, say that pride has become about showing off your sexual fetishes and, yes, indoctrinating children. Once again, at the Toronto Pride Festival, we saw acts of indecent exposure. Mostly men. There was a couple of women, but mostly men, fully exposed, showing off their genitalia. They marched in the Pride Parade. Some acts of simulated sex on the streets. I Our deputy prime minister didn't put on a strap-on dildo this year, from what I saw, but you know, these are the sort of things that if you do it the day before the Pride Parade and the day after the Pride Parade, or if you did it on some other street in Toronto, not the street that the parade went down, you'd be surrounded by 2, 3, possibly 4 police officers, quickly handcuffed, covered in a blanket, put into the back of a car, and scurried off to the local police division so you could be processed. But somehow we just don't enforce the laws on Pride Day and Pride Parade Day. This is what's happening. This is how there is such a backlash now when the Prime Minister and his ministers talk about a growing amount of homophobia and transphobia. I don't think that there's a lot of extra people hating my daughter. I don't hate my daughter. I don't hate any of her friends. But to quote my youngest daughter, why do we need to ram our sexuality down people's throats? The whole point of Pride was that I could walk down the street holding my girlfriend's hand, give her a kiss in public, and people weren't going to beat the hell out of us. It was so that we could live in our apartment or our home together and have relationships with our neighbors and not be considered pariahs in the neighborhood. It was so if we choose to have children, that we won't be looked down upon because it's mom and mom in the house, not mom and dad. I wanted to be able to use my spouse's medical benefits. They wanted to be able to use mine. We wanted to be able to have the same rights as heterosexual couples when it came to property rights and what would happen when a spouse passes away, what would happen to our estates, and things being recognized legally. That's what Pride started over. Pride has become I'm going to show off my fetishes no matter how weird they are. And I've said this all my life, and people give me strange looks. But the fact of the matter is, everybody's kinky. Everybody has some thing that turns them on that they like to do, that if it was public knowledge, they would be shamed for it. But since they do it behind closed doors, using the words of our current Prime Minister's father, the eyes of the nation have no place in the bedrooms of the nation. And if it's done there in private, no one cares. But when you're walking down a street in Toronto, nude, wearing a puppy mask and barking while you're being walked on a leash, or you are wearing a bunny mask, hopping down the road, and the only thing you're wearing is the bunny mask and a pair of shoes, when the deputy prime minister of the country is dancing down the street with a strap-on dildo attached to her and thinking that, oh, this is great. Or a drag queen standing on a float with the prosthetic gigantic breasts reading story time. Why? Why? Do we all need to see this? Do children whose parents brought them to this parade, do they need to see this? And then to those parents, why in God's name are you bringing your children to this? I mean, I myself, over the years, I have taken in drag shows. I have taken in a kind of a Moulin Rouge type cabaret. Great fun. I enjoyed it immensely. But I sure as hell wouldn't have taken my daughters there when they were between the ages of, infants up to 18 years of age. You just don't do that. That's called being a good parent. Exposing your 5-year old to someone's sexual proclivities, we used to look down on that in this country, and I think we still should. As for other things that are going on, well, you know, the world will turn and there will be a lot of barbecue consumed this summer as the government and the ministers, so the prime minister and his 6 or 8 major cabinet ministers, get out there with their MPs, press the flesh, try to give away as much as they can, and get people back to liking them. Don't know if they will be successful. 8 to 10 points down in the polls, that's a huge, huge climb back. And of course, the conservatives will be out there giving an alternative to the current government. Jagmeet Singh will be living in his delusion that he's actually helping Canadians and that he could be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Will we have an election in the fall? I don't know. I find that one hard to say. Last year I was positive we would, but this year I'm not so positive. And I say that simply because the conditions are not there for Trudeau to win, so why go early? And there's just a lot of uncertainty right now. Inflation is down, which is good for the government, but interest rates are probably going to go up on the 15th of July, which is bad for the government. And tomorrow, on Canada Day, there's a new carbon tax coming to go with the one we currently have, which is going to raise the price of gas probably another nickel to 10 cents, which will drive inflation, both food inflation, goods inflation, and also energy inflation, which probably is going to be bad for the government. So I don't know what we're going to walk into in the fall. What I can say is that I probably won't post much over the summer because, politically speaking, not a lot goes on. But I will say this to everybody out there: this year, the number of cancel Canada Day people is minuscule compared to last year. Get out, enjoy Canada Day, celebrate with your family and friends, which is still one of the greatest countries on this planet, and the place where I live, you live, and where a lot of people want to come to live. Even with a cockwomble as our prime minister like Justin Trudeau, it's still an amazing place. And just get out and enjoy yourself. I will post a little over the summer, but not on a weekly basis. I wish you all a very happy Canada Day. Get out, celebrate, enjoy the weather. Right now in southern Ontario, it's thunderstorms, but they're supposed to clear out this afternoon. It's supposed to be a glorious weekend. Look out for the hot sun and have a great barbecue tomorrow. Watch the fireworks. Celebrate our country's, just to get this straight, 156th birthday. And God bless you all. And I will see you when I see you. Once again, as always, this has been Pray on This. Have a great summer.